evening and welcome to the South Tonight's new home. Our programme tonight's coming from our new television newsroom here in the historic Garrison Hall building. We moved in at the weekend. Tonight we'll be catching up on a little of the building's history and also looking at how new technology is changing the way our programme's put together. There'll also be something from Gore's Gold Guitars. But first, news today that Ansett representatives will be in Dunedin tomorrow to sign an agreement which heralds their service into the city. An Ansett spokesman says the agreement will set out terms for the DCC's construction of the shell of a terminal building. Work on that's to start this week. A date for the start of the service hasn't been finalised, but it's hoped it'll be October or November this year. Fewer tourists are visiting Ovelston, Dunedin's stately mansion, which is one of the most popular stops for visitors. Numbers are down 30% on last year, and the 5 daily tours have been reduced to 2. But as Kathy Graham discovered, Ovelston's not taking it lying down.
The item here is known as a triffet, and you may see the design on there.
It's the little touches as much as the grandeur that fascinate visitors to Ovelston, and the staff pride themselves on keeping the Theoman collection in immaculate condition. Determined to look on the bright side, they point out that fewer tour parties will mean more time for restoration. Coach tours have been the mainstay of Ovelston's business, and that's where the loss has been the greatest. They're down 50% on last year. Australia's where the tourists are off to, lured by Expo, the bicentennial, and a better exchange rate. But manager Dennis Moore is determined Ovelston should not lose its edge.
I'm just back from Auckland where I spent 5 days banging a drum on all major tour companies. We had a promotion lunch where the first one we promoted was Dunedin, and with Ovelston included, of course. And what we do is I call it an awareness program, and we're making people aware of what we are, what we have, and the total attraction of Dunedin, which is so significant.
The message Mr Moore's come back with is that tour operators can be persuaded, but Dunedin has to sell itself. And Ovelston's glad to do what it can to make a visit to the city memorable.
It was roses, roses, all the way at Dunedin's Botanic Gardens today. And instead of frowning on enthusiasts nicking the odd cutting, staff actually pitched in to help home gardeners dig up hundreds of bushes to take away. Gaynor Smith went along to what seemed to be a free-for-all.
They didn't wait for the 1 o'clock start time the Botanic Gardens had put on its rose giveaway. No sooner had staff popped off for lunch than in poured the rose fanciers, with spades, forks, bags, sacks and the odd trailer parked outside. But for once, this wasn't vandalism in the gardens. The new state highway extension means the old rose avenues now lead nowhere. Some of the hundreds of roses here, no one's actually tallied them, are 30 years old. So staff removed some treasures and announced open slather on the rest. Garden staff gave both muscle power and advice. Some diggers knew their bush's name.
Fresco.
What colour?
Fresco.
Others enjoyed a mystery.
I've been looking forward to the spring to see what I've got.
It's unlikely there'll be such a chance again to dig in the Botanic Gardens.
And what a perfect day today for gardening. No blooms, of course, but we can admire some from last year. At 3 o'clock today, Half Moon Bay was cloudy with 12 degrees. Invercargill cloudy, 15. Gore fine and 16. Balclutha sunny and 18 degrees. Dunedin partly cloudy, sharing the high today of 19. Palmerston sunny and 18. And Oamaru fine, that extra high, 19 degrees. Coorau a norwesterly and 16 degrees, Ranfurly fine and 15, Queenstown showers and 12, Wanaka rain and 10, the low today, Alexandra partly cloudy but 17, and Taylor also low with overcast and 10 degrees. And the expected highs for tomorrow are Dunedin 13 and Invercargill 11 degrees. Now, back to the fact that we're coming to you tonight from our new Garrison Hall newsroom. While it looks like the very latest thing, the building's actually well over 100 years old. Lee Davies is very interested in the city's architecture, so she's been looking into Garrison Hall's past and future.
Luckily, Hilary, the building does seem to have a future, with some protection from its Historic Places Trust classification. Anyway, we're very fond of it, as were the original owners and even the architect who designed it. The building of Garrison Hall was a project dear to the heart of architect Nathaniel Wales, who wanted a drill hall for the volunteer units. Money was found through public subscription and by the volunteers themselves, and the building was officially opened in 1879. Wales was appointed one of the 7 commissioners who administered the affairs of the building. It was written into the hiring agreement for the hall that commissioners were given free passes to all the functions. And that was a worthwhile perk. From Garrison Hall stage, Henry Morton Stanley described how he met Livingstone in darkest Africa. Richard Seddon welcomed home the troops. Mark Twain read extracts from his works, and concert artists like Alan Terry performed. But in 1912, the Defence Amendment Act was passed, and overnight Garrison Hall was taken over by the government. In the post-war years, the building was substantially altered for use by the broadcasting service. We've put it through as many changes as anyone, but this latest renovation, designed by the original firm of architects, has taken into account the building's history and worked to maintain its architectural integrity. An area of 125 square metres was renovated to accommodate our news staff. The old offices with their partitions and lowered ceilings were dismantled, and before long the original character of Garrison Hall began to shine through. The archways were a particular feature of the building, and these have been exposed and enhanced. It's an appropriate renovation for an historic building. Just as a footnote, when the government commandeered Garrison Hall, the volunteers were never compensated. In those days, the valuation of the building was £18,000. If we had to compensate them today, we'd be in the gun for around $500,000.
One of the nicest things about our little bit of Garrison Hall is that it's been purpose designed for the work we do. New technologies meant a lot of changes in the past couple of years. Kim, that's something you're going to tell us about.
Well, the easiest way for me to do that is to show you a day in the life of the program. The newsroom starts its day with a meeting of available staff in town.
Right, okay, the first thing is I think pat on the back for Jim and Kim particularly for the good work that they did at the weekend with the earthquake.
The chief reporter, Frank Campbell, usually starts with a list of the day's prospects.
The electrical people have apparently, well, have they or haven't they gone to the dams? We don't know. Michael's trying to find out.
Frank looks after the assignments and takes control of the items that are of national importance. John McDermott controls the South Tonight. Now there's a rough idea of which stories will be required by the 6:30 news and what the South Tonight will look like this evening. Just after 9 o'clock, it's out with the contact books. Reporters start arranging recording sessions, set up interviews or research.
What's his number at home? Do you know?
Meanwhile, the crews are standing by for their first job of the day.
Good. What time is the job? 5 minutes. Right, we better get on the way. Okay, bye-bye. 5 minutes over the channel.
News is shot entirely on video now. Gone are the days of film and processing. A news crew consists of a cameraman and a soundman. The camera is attached to a recorder which holds the cassettes. They're a high-quality broadcast tape that's about 1/4 of an inch wider than the VHS you might have at home. And this equipment is already out of date. News jobs are not always methodically planned. Crews have to be ready to jump at a moment's notice. 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, an urgent news job. A light plane has crashed at the Taieri airstrip. For the reporter and crew involved, things get busy from now on. In a situation like this, it's important for the crew to be on the scene as soon as possible to capture the images that make the evening television bulletin. Fortunately, no one was seriously hurt in this accident, and now it's up to the reporter, Mark Price, to try and find an eyewitness to the crash. He does. At the local airstrip, a club pilot saw the whole thing and an interview is called for. By now it's mid-afternoon, still a few hours to on-air time, but a lot to be done. Mark has to script quickly, and he's not the only one trying to get an item out for tonight. But the computer word processor has revolutionised the newsroom. You no longer hear the rattle of typewriters, and once written, a script can be ripped and read straight off the printer. The next step is editing. Once again, electronic changes have brought benefits to the news. The tape that was shot on the job is put into one of these machines and a clean tape in another. The editor, today it's Mark Robinson, works with the reporter in a booth. A fair amount of teamwork is taken for granted at this stage.
So you've got the interview to go now, and how long is your item altogether?
Oh, about a minute and a half.
The process is very like editing an audio cassette tape. Bits of the field tape are transferred onto the fresh tape. Most people are surprised how long it takes to get a news item ready. In this tape, it's been about 3 hours' work for an item that'll be on TV for a minute and a half. But only half the job is done now. This is where Hilary comes into the picture. It's about 6 o'clock and she's being made up. This is a relatively quiet period for her, but from here on it's often like feeding time at the zoo. Back in the newsroom, details are being completed to get the program to air, and people still editing last-minute items. Tonight there's a real panic on. There's been a technical problem with one of the tapes, which means there's no time for rehearsal, and that puts everyone on edge. The program is underway without any hitches, and in the videotape rooms, items are being put to air smoothly. While on air, Hilary reads the story introductions off auto cue, a system of mirrors that means she can see the script in front of the camera lens, but at home you can't see it. A tight show, and everyone breathes a sigh of relief that it went well. Time now to start working on tomorrow night's program.
So now you know all the secrets. And sadly, this is Kim's last week with us. She's off to the big smoke in Auckland, and she'll be sorely missed in Otago and Southland. Gore became the Nashville of the South during the weekend with the successful staging of the 15th Annual Gold Guitar Awards, the showpiece of the New Zealand country and western scene. Sports reporter Ken Nicholson donned a different hat this weekend, the 10-gallon variety, to cover the senior finals.
I'd like to welcome, please, from Hamilton in the North Island, entrant number 1, Satira Temple.
From the minute she walked onto the stage, Satira Temple was a winner.
You got me right where you want me. It's true, I'm right in the palm of your hand. You got me right where you want me.
Not only did she win the female vocalist section with this number and the gospel section, but in came 11-year-old daughter Camila to notch the duet as well. But the night covered all facets of country and western, Dunedin's Len Chaney taking up the traditional section with a 50s number, Silver Wings. The local image of the region was Ranfurly cowboy P.J. Wallace, who took out the male vocal and instrumental awards. Overall score for the championships went to the Christchurch group, The Highlights.
I know that deep within my heart I'll get over you.
But the night belonged to Satira Temple.
Overall winner for 1988. A very big round of applause for Satira Temple.
A star in the making, perhaps. And congratulations to the host town of Gore, another fine effort. That's it from the South Tonight's new home. But if you've got an idea for the story or for the programme, you will know where to find us, and our telephone number is 741 414. It's back to the studio tomorrow night. Good night from all of us.